Okay, good evening, everyone. This is Lori Charlton. It's May 8th, 2025. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Board of Finance. Call the meeting to order. As you all please rise while Mr. Vitola leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Members of the public who've dialed in or joined us via Zoom tonight, please know you are muted and will not be heard by board members, and there will be no live public comment until called for during the meeting. We welcome public comment on certain voting items, and I will open up for comment on agenda items 4 through 6 as those items are heard. If you're on Zoom, you can indicate now or at any time prior to public comment via the chat function that you'd like to be heard. And please limit your comments to no more than 3 minutes. Excuse me. Members of the public are always encouraged to send their comments and questions in writing to the board, and you can do so via the town website by navigating to the board finance page and clicking on the contact. Great. So we're going to jump right into item 3, which is to hear, consider, and set the mill rate for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2025 and ending June 30th, 2026. Motion to hear this item, Mr. Curley, seconded Ms. Rivero. Okay, the backup for this item is in the posted documents starting on page 3. Mr. Harris, do you have any comments you want to make?
No, I will walk through the calculation if you like. Will be the
okay.
The document includes several pages. Page 1 after the table of contents is really the detailed calculation of the mill rate. Page 2 is the input data that comes from the approved budget. There's one item that I will circle back and note. And page 3 includes information on the general fund balance, which really basically indicates what is required to ensure that the ratio of the unassigned fund expenditures remains flat year to year. And then the next page is sensitivities on changes in or different collection rates. And then the final page, page 5, is a summary of collection rate history. So beginning with, first I'll just note on page 2, again, this is information that was approved. Was one change that has occurred recently. The grand list changed. This change is due to updating data related to basically the way that we have calculated vehicles. We had a vendor who came in recently and he updated the calculation, which resulted in a $29.4 million increase in grand list. So I will go now back to page 1 and just walk through the calculation of the proposed mill rate. The starting point is the approved expenditures budget. It was approved by the RTM with no changes. No, there was a net change of about $3 million from the original budget that was submitted. That change primarily related to the Board of Ed, but there were some other items in there. The expenditures budget is then adjusted for non-tax revenues of $44,730,147, resulting in a net current year revenue requirement of $339,191,878. That is further adjusted by credits and reserves. It assumes a collection rate of 99.1% in terms of tax collections. At this point, we are pretty far along in terms of hitting that target for the full year. So I think we're comfortable with that. But there's a total tax levy requirement of $346,441,878. Then I'm taking that as a ratio of the net grand list. That results in a proposed mill rate of 0.2842, which is a 1.87% over the last fiscal year. So I'll take any questions that you might have.
Comments, questions from the board? Curly?
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned that there was a substantial change to the one of the numbers on two. Right, you just point us to exactly what number that.
It would be, it's really the page, the assessor grand list, the 13,909. That increased by $29,427.70. $798.
Thank you.
And is that the supplemental motor vehicle line or is it?
No, it's the regular that's due to the change in the depreciation on the regular vehicle. We don't, basically when the vendor came in with the software, he really was able to refine the calculations that we had made, which were sort of some macro estimates early in the process.
So, can somebody just explain, what was this number when we approved the budget? Wasn't it like 1.9 something?
No, the bill rate when we approved the budget was 0.2849. And the increase was 2.12.
0.12. So with the change to the brand list, which is based on new information that came to us from consultants that are helping the tax assessor, it's dropped from 2.12 to 1.87.
It dropped in terms of the change, yeah.
That's pretty big.
Yeah, but it does a significant change in the brand list.
Yeah.
Again, we were using estimates to determine what we thought the value of the vehicles were. And again, it was related to the change in the legislation. So we're able to really refine that calculation.
Do you have anything to show us that calculation?
I don't know if Ross is on. I'm sure we could get that. It's really a software. It's just
The initial calculation was off of five, it was because the adjustment adjusts the schedule by 5%.
Right.
So with the initial calculation, the assessor took the motor vehicle pool, that amount of grand list as motor vehicle, and adjusted it by 5%,
Right.
which is a simplistic way of taking it, but until it's actually done vehicle by vehicle, you don't have the final calculation. So
Right.
after the RTM made the approval, the vendor then actually takes everything and provides the assessor literally vehicle by vehicle, year by year, and that's where this comes out. And then this becomes what he certifies.
So this is an actual number.
Yes.
Precise down to the
Right.
vehicles.
And then one more question, on the reserve for uncollected, 3,350,000. Is that something new that we decided to put in here because we're less confident about the collection?
No, it's always been in there.
That was always there.
Yeah, I mean, if you look, there's a page that shows the history. If you look at page 5, I think.
I guess my question here is I never really noticed that. We went with a reserve of 99.01.
Mhm.
But yet the average is 98.8. And in the past 4 or 5 years, it hasn't even reached 99, but yet I kind of had the memory that we were using the same average, having the same collection rate as the prior year.
Yeah, I mean, we have had, as I said, we've been very successful in terms of collections this year. I mean, we are more than about 80% in terms of the collection for the full year. There are no significant noticeable past due amounts. So I mean, at this point, it's something that we're confident.
Mr. Curley?
Yeah, on the assumption that you put forward with 9901, the 5-year average on page 5 of the backup shows 98.90. I have to recognize that the 5-year average includes 2020, which was the COVID year. In each of the last 3 budget cycles, we've gotten to this stage. We have excluded 2020 because it's been an outlier.
Yeah.
When I look at the 4-year average, that's 99.10. If I look at the last 3-year average, it's 99.13. So, and I don't have the data in front of me now, but I know that when we've gone through this, our comparison to other towns that resolution we did every year, we were kind of on the lower end of that scale in terms of the collection assumption. I'd be comfortable, in fact, I'd suggest that we as a board need to consider a higher collection rate, lower uncollected assumption. That should be closer, if you look at page 4, based on the trailing 3-year average and the trend, I think there's support for 99.12 if these are our menu choices here.
Yeah, again, I'm gonna withdraw my concern because I was looking at the budgeted column, which has all the 98s.
Yeah.
I now see the actual, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Mr. Walsh?
I took some of the words right out of my mouth, so you want to make the motion, I'll second it. Right now.
Yeah. Well, I'll make the motion.
Okay, so I agree. The motion though, so that would, okay, so you want to make the motion to propose the mill rate. So that would give us a mill rate of 28.39, right? That's
Yeah, but well, the motion would be to make the
Yeah.
assumption for the reserve for uncollected, change it from the 99.01, which has been used in this
Yeah.
analysis, to the 99.12, which would then by default take us to a mill rate of 28.39.
The chair lady pointed out to me earlier that 2020 was not included in previous just because of.
Yep.
okay. Mr. Walsh, you want a second motion then? Okay. All right, well, I guess that's the vote for the mill rate
Yeah,
then.
unless we-
So is there any further discussion on this item? All right, so all in favor then of setting the mill rate for fiscal year 25-26 at 28.39 mils, please raise your hand. Okay, it is unanimous. Thank you. Great. Okay, so we'll move on to item 4. To hear, consider, and adopt a bond resolution entitled "A Resolution Appropriating $500,000 for design costs for facility and grounds upgrades at the Adaptive Recreation Center, and authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance the appropriation." Motion to hear this item, Ms. Ruggiero, seconded by Mr. Mottola. The backup for this item is posted online with the bond resolution beginning on page 10. And the project proposal beginning on page 13. So before I turn this over to Mr. Calabrese, is there any public comment on this? Okay, seeing none, welcome, Mr. Calabrese.
Thank you. I'm Anthony Calabrese, Chief of Community Services. I'm here before you tonight asking for $500,000 from seed money for really design work and some testing for our adaptive recreation center. The way I look at this project is in several phases. Phase 1, you guys have already approved, all the funding bodies have already approved $450,000 for the All Abilities Playground, which we'll be doing this summer. Second phase is the seed money to come up with the design for what we're going to actually do in that building and get a pretty solid construction costs that we'll be able to go out to bid for. And then phase 3 would essentially be coming back. Phase 2.5 would be coming back for the additional construction money. And then phase 3 would be coming back one more time for money to convert the Little League field, T-ball field that's on site right now to a Miracle Field or something similar. Miracle Field's an actual trademark name, so I don't want to say that we're going with that right off the bat, but we will look at it. So what we're looking for this $500,000 to do is to retrofit the former pilot house at Grasmere to become the first adaptive recreation center here in Fairfield. This building will be 100% ADA compliant. It'll have approximately 6,000 square feet of program space. It'll include hopefully 3 multi-purpose classrooms, 1 life skills classroom with a mock kitchen, 1 full-size elementary school size gym / multi-purpose room. We plan to move all our current adaptive programming to this facility. Programs would include things like our after-school chill, our TGIS drop-in program, our adaptive summer camps, and all our Special Olympics training. Plan to add additional programs that would include cooking classes, life skills classes, musical enrichment, sensory programs, and physical movement classes. And we are currently in talks and exploring partnerships with Fairfield SEPTA, Wolfgang, Unified Sports here in Fairfield, and the Fairfield Red Storm. We're also working tentatively with Southern Connecticut State University and Springfield College to provide students to help facilitate OT and PT and therapeutic recreation. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Calabrese. Questions from the board? Mr. Myers?
So, first off, I'm very supportive of this. Looks great and it's much in need. But I did kind of jump forward to the total projected cost of this project. And really what kind of stood out was that, I understand it's probably just an estimate, but the construction total was 2.8 million. But then the total construction cost is 4.2. And I just felt like it add up, design contingency 10%, estimate contingency 10%, escalation 4%, owner's contingency 10%, architect engineering services, okay, and then testing and special. It just felt a little bit like I've never seen that big of a proportion of the total cost being contingency.
Understood. I can't, unfortunately, I don't see Eli on. I don't know if maybe could speak to it.
I can speak in generalities to it. I mean, one of the things we've looked at with this project is sort of how best to move forward. Is all the bodies are best advised and making an educated decision at the end. So the goal here is seed money. These are very high, top level. Until we have the seed money, which is all that the board is voting on tonight. Our goal is when this comes back is that it's frankly that it's either at since it's a realistic project, it's either been bidded out and it's absolutely dead on, and those contingencies are very tight, specific contingency amount, or it's been very much so at that point complete 100% construction design and costed out documents. So what we're trying to do there, and I think we spoke about it some about the waterfall and things as a whole, is it's not we're not purposely overshooting it, but we are covering in different places that we think may be potential costs to certainly not here and say we'd like $500,000 of seed money and we think it's a $2 million project, and next we spend $500,000. Well, now we're this far into it. Are you telling if the board doesn't potentially like that it's $4.5 million? I mean, now is the time to say sort of have that discussion. If that makes sense, because we typically get so deep into these projects and then find out it's essentially these numbers. So we're taking the opposite approach.
If I could just follow up on that, because when I looked at the schematics from, I guess, the work that maybe the architect did, it looks like we're pretty far into this project. I mean, it was pretty detailed, laid out what they want to do. So.
From yes for design options. However, the feasibility wasn't what the core of the feasibility was the structure itself. So what you're dealing with is an elementary school gym essentially. If you've ever been to Sullivan McKinney, you can see what can be done in that building as a whole, and that it's low income, primarily HUD funded senior housing, and you never think you were in a school other than sort of those elements of it. But when you go to the gym has been neglected really for decades. By Grasmere by the Sea, the pilot house, it's a mess. There's a lot of things there. So part of what we wanted to start off with was, literally the feasibility of that structural area, right? To almost similar to other things that have such little attention. So a lot of the feasibility was high level design and options like this. Those are not highly complex. I mean, I know it looks good and they've moved a lot of these things around, but those are the types of things, for instance, the firehouses we're doing, in the 10,000 type range per stage, right? So this isn't on that level. Places that worry us after the feasibility that cause some of these contingencies they center around the fact that it is a gym from an elementary school from, you know, like, yeah, I mean, I was just saying like my godfather there, literally. So like we're talking.
All the asbestos concerns and things like that.
Yeah, so we cautious about it.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. Ms.
Can I
Leclerc?
follow up on that? Because that's exactly where I was concerned that this was actually too low of a number. Because when I look at this project, it feels a lot like a school. And our school price tags are much more than that. And so how does that, aren't there similar requirements to a facility for children?
Yeah, to answer that question, yes, there are similar requirements. This one is primarily a retrofit, I think is the best way to say it, where we're not taking walls down. The structure is staying, it's really gonna be moving some plumbing, the bathrooms will have to be remodeled and reworked. But everything that's there now, I believe is gonna stay there. Yes, they're gonna test the windows and make sure there's no PCBs or anything like that, but I don't believe that they're actually gonna replace windows. I believe that's part of what the seed money will be used towards, to see what actually has to happen. You know, when they rip up the floors, there's asbestos tile or something underneath it. Can that just be encapsulated? Again, part of what they would do in this design work.
And is this facility gonna be mostly for K through 12? Like, is it children? Will it be, or is it also being considered for adaptive needs of older people,
It'll be all ages.
all ages?
Yeah, it'll be all ages. That's what our current programming that we do is.
Clerk. Other questions? Mr. Walsh?
Is any of this facility to be used by the school system?
Not directly by the school system, potentially in partnership with some of their programs. And I apologize that I can't remember the name of the program that we have right now that comes to all our facilities every day. I have them at my fitness center. They work there. They work some hours at town hall. But I would see that program, the transition program, would potentially be working with us at this facility.
What is the who's off director? Who's sending the director?
Most likely Gianna Salsi from my office. He's a certified therapeutic rec specialist. I would have her oversee. She oversees all our adaptive programming now. But she would bounce back and forth between the two buildings.
What's her position now?
Recreation coordinator.
She's gonna become a director then?
Program. Not any different than the senior center. That would be the type of position this would be. Basically the same, a person who oversees a facility that has programs in it.
And how much do we have in the waterfall for the runs?
I believe it was 5 million, but
I'm pretty sure it matches up.
Yeah, I think it matches up.
No, yeah, there was no change. From that.
Mr. Walsh, do you have any other questions while he looks that up?
Well, and following up on that, the amount that we recently approved for the playground, is that in the waterfall, the part of this $5 million number you think it is?
no, that was separate.
That was separate.
They kept it
It's
separate.
already, yeah.
It's gonna be 5.5. Right. What other expenses on top of your 5.5 might we see coming down the pipe? And including staff?
Yeah, well, I couldn't give you the additional staffing off the top of my head. But the other big price tag that would be coming down is if we did the field, which obviously is what I had mentioned when I opened up is part 3. That field right now, the most recent one that has been put in Fairfield was about 650,000.
That's a softball field?
Or whatever you wanna call it. Correct.
It's over 6 million. And then what about, what you can't tell us about staffing? Why can't you tell us about?
Well, I don't have that number, I don't have those numbers in front of me, so I couldn't tell you. It'll probably be a couple of our already, our current staff that already run some of these programs. Gianna would split some of her time there. And then there'll be some other part-time staff, but I don't think we'll have a custodial staff that'll probably be contracted out like the rest of our buildings. So there'll be obviously cleaning fees. I could try to put together a rough, idea of what that is. I get that to you.
Okay.
Just to follow up, Mr. Wolf, are these gonna be fee-based programs?
Yes.
Okay.
Fee-based programs, I don't want to say that they're going to be, I don't want to say that they're going to cover 100% of the expenses. A lot of the programs that we do for adaptive programming are very expensive to offer. They have a lot of one-on-one, but much smaller ratios with staff to pupils. So they do tend to run on that.
Follow up on that.
Yeah.
Will you have outside vendors running some of those programs? Is that how
Yep.
it works?
Yep, we'll contract out with some. There will be things that we'll be able to do in-house where we're paying an instructor hourly, or it'll be a full-time staff member who's already on the payroll that is just doing hours, it's part of their normal
Do
salary.
you contemplate hiring any full-time employee staff or down here?
No, not at the moment. I don't foresee that. I don't think that that's necessary. If we have the staff in-house, we'll be able to staff this with seasonal staff or part-time staff.
Sorry, Mr. Walsh.
The part-time staff, is that gonna be additional part-time staff that would this year?
Yes. Don't know.
Well, timing though, right? It wouldn't be this fiscal year.
No, it wouldn't be this fiscal year. I mean, this project, seed money,
2 years.
yeah, we're probably 18 months to 24 months out, I would think.
The environmental number. But find environmental issues.
I think as David was saying, there's a chance, right? It's an old building. So yeah, that's part of the seed money is to do all that testing now to find out what is that.
We've had people continuously using the space and we don't have any idea what's going on in there.
Well, I don't think that, it's just, it's when you open up walls and pipe asbestos windows, then you have an issue. I mean, we had the same thing at Osborne Hill. They replaced the windows. I mean, those windows were there for many years with no issues. And then once they opened them up, right, I mean, then they had to replace them all and we had PCBs and all.
Yeah,
all
that was
rest.
the same vintage. Grassmere was the same vintage.
Yes.
All these other, so you're betting person, you're betting on CBs being found.
I think there's a possibility.
High probability. All right, but there's no visible asbestos that's in the building right now?
Not to my knowledge, no.
4.5.
4.5 million?
Yes, that was the last printed copy that was provided to the board.
So we need to up it. We need to increase it.
Yeah, I mean, when we get the numbers, when we get the seed money, we get the actual numbers back. But yeah, if we don't have them by the time we get a waterfall, then I think it should be in alignment with what we've authorized.
Yeah, we go with most accurate information we have.
Other questions? Okay, well, I just want to say thank you. It's really exciting, for the community and it's taking the initiative. We look forward to hearing more. Okay, so, any questions on the bond resolution? Okay, all right, all in favor of approving, the resolution set forth in item 4 of the agenda, please raise your hand. Unanimous. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Calabrese.
Thank you.
Thank
Good luck.
Okay, we'll move to item 5. To hear, consider, and adopt a bond resolution referred to as a resolution amending and restating a resolution entitled "The Resolution Appropriating $2,871,839 for costs of certain non-recurring capital projects and authorizing the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, to increase the appropriation and bond authorization by $584,649 to a total of $3,456,488. Motion to hear this item? Ms. Ruggiero, seconded by Mr. Myers. Okay, the backup for this item is posted online, begins on page 56 with the bond resolution. On page 60, there is the amended schedule of capital non-recurring items, less than $1 million. So that's included, that's amended to include the additional project that's being requested here for light tower project. And a summary of the project begins on page 116. Before I go to Mr. Papa George, is there any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Papa George, welcome. Have you take us through this?
Everyone. So this is, I don't know, I know it was brought up a few times. I don't know if any of you are aware of it or not. There was, one of the holidays, President's Day, one of the 70-foot light towers at Ward High School fell, windstorm. We dug in to find out why it fell, and we discovered some more information about it, that back in 2010, there was a free fall asking that welds be inspected. So we dug in, we closed the field right away because we didn't know, because there's 3 more existing light towers on that field. We had a engineering company that does fail inspection engineers come out and look at the welds on the 3, and the full report that we have available on our website. It was determined that the other 3 were not in the best condition and should be also removed. So we did remove them so that we could open up the field and begin use for the spring sports program. That being said, we are looking now to move this project forwards on an emergency base so that we can get the lights ordered and in place prior to the fall sports program at the start of the school year. We work directly with the contractor who is providing or has provided the lights for the middle school project. So they're the exact same lights as what is up now at Roger Ludlow Middle School. We work with the company that is on call for electrical services for the town. So we got our on-call bid for that. And then we also worked with our grounds crew to get a price to do the dirt and the remediation and check the soil testing. Same as the company that is currently doing Roger Ludlow Middle School. We kept this project moving, and we're hoping tonight to get approval for funding to keep it moving, so that we don't have to stop where we are at this point. I know there's some concern raised. We did carry an 8% contingency in our number because of the soil sampling that we have to do to make sure it's good and make sure there's no contaminants in it. That being said, we felt an 8% contingency was an okay number to carry based on the fact that we're digging 4 1-foot round by 16-foot holes in the ground. And if that dirt came back and we had to remediate, we'd be hauling 1 truckload of fill off, as opposed to a project like Roger Ludlow Middle School where it grew up because there was a ton of soil that needed to be off-site. So we're comfortable with our 584, 649 number, and we believe we can keep this project moving and get it done prior to the start of the fall sports season. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Papa George. Mr. Mottola?
A couple of questions. So are we within our policy with respect to waiving the bid process for a project like this? Have you discussed the waiver with the town? I think Adam's here.
We did talk to Adam about getting pricing from the contractor who was already awarded the Roger Ludlow Middle School price, so that we could keep moving forwards rather than having to go out to bid for lights, especially since these lights are kind of a unique commodity. There's not a lot of companies that build these lights. So we found using the guys out of Massachusetts, so they're local, and they can provide us the lights within the time frame.
So I guess the question, are we satisfied that by doing this, we're following our policy? And I understand why you want to do it, because it looks like you have someone already who's doing one project in town, and it'll make this project go quicker. But is Is that a reason enough to waive the bid process for something like that? I guess that's my question.
So I would direct that to Adam, unfortunately. I know we did work together.
Is he on this for this or the other?
Well, I don't know.
I don't think he signed for
I
this,
don't know if
but
he's
Adam, are you there? Yeah, so when we waive a bid, there's some background, two scenarios. Either it falls under a section of the purchasing policy which requires the board to vote, or it falls under an allowable section where it can be waived under certain circumstances, and then, you know, those are reported quarterly to the board, which in fact, we're gonna have a report on that later tonight.
Yep.
I'm assuming, and maybe we can try to get Adam if possible, but I'm assuming that since we're not being asked to vote bid waiver, that this has been deemed to fit into the policy of, you know, it fits into the category of things that the town can waive the bid process as long as it's reported to the board and reporting it to us now.
I do know we have done that in the past, and there is the form for a bid waiver that we would fill out and accompany the purchase order agreement as well.
Do you recall the criteria?
Don't remember the form off the top. We have a couple different ones, so I'm not sure which one this board uses.
Okay. Mr. Curley?
You mentioned that the vendor that you're working with, for efficiency purposes, is the vendor who was selected for the Ludlow project. I assume that project followed our policy, and there were multiple bids, and they were the lowest bidder, and all of that.
I think Adam is here. Hi, Adam.
Hi.
I don't know if you heard the question.
Yeah, I'm not fully prepared to speak on this tonight, but from just listening to Angela's, refresh my memory. I think we'd probably be looking at this as a single source item, which is it's defined in the purchasing policy as a situation where it's not technically a sole source, but the decision is made that this is the single source that makes the most sense in the best interest of the town. I don't have the exact definition in front of me right now, but my guess is that that's the angle we're taking on this.
Well, I guess my only question is, it's been vetted by you and Angela's and the board. Angela's isn't coming here asking us to waive the bid process, and you don't know about it, right? You've been involved somewhat with respect to this, correct?
Yeah, I recall speaking to Angeles about this. I just wasn't prepared
That's
to talk
fine.
about it tonight.
No, that's all right.
Yeah, that's okay. As I recall from the policy, and maybe Mary or Jim, you guys remember, or Shane on the committee, you have to approve waivers, correct, Adam?
Yeah, so it would come when
The
they're
purchasing
ready to move
authority. So
forward.
you and
Right,
the first selectman would have to, okay.
exactly.
All right.
And so before we entered into this, if you haven't formally approved that, you would have to do so.
Correct. Yeah, a purchase order would not be approved without the bid waiver being approved.
That's fine.
Mr. Walsh?
So they were installed in 2010. There was a safety recall on them.
Safety recall, wasn't a recall to remove and replace, it was a recall to have the welds inspected. This is where the plate that sits on the footing is welded to the pipe itself. We went back and dug through all old records. It was before my time here. We didn't said that it was ever inspected, they were ever looked at, that anyone was even given notification of the recall at that time. I did speak with the town attorney, and we were gonna look more into it, but they don't feel there's necessarily a legal aspect because the company who manufactured them at the same time of the recall went bankrupt. So he said there's not a ton that we can go after for some type of reimbursement or cost on this project.
Were people getting money out of them back in 2010 when they issued the recall? Because obviously everyone's wondering why they didn't get 20 years out of it, right? You should have to pay for that.
So someone should have to pay for it. I can't speculate why they went bankrupt. I just know that they did file for bankruptcy the same year as
And pursuant to the, under the long range cost pursuant to your emergency light bulb replacement write-up, these have a 20 to plus years. How do you guys follow checking on these things? I mean, do you dig these things up and check on them? Because, I mean, I presume another 20 years can go on.
Yep.
And
So
even without a recall, they've reached their maximum life. The company can't be expected to design something that lasts 100 years.
No, absolutely. So one of the things that we did talk about with the company that did the investigation work for us on the welds was what type of follow-up should we have on this? And they did recommend after a 10-year life to go out and do a follow-up engineered report. The difference between these lights and the ones that were currently there is these new lights don't have a welded flange at the bottom of it. It's a sleeve. So the sleeve, the bottom pole of the light itself goes 16 feet into the ground, and then the new pole sleeves over the top of that, and it builds in sections. So they're sleeved together as opposed to having weld points on them that could fail. Same reason we originally, when I wrote this up originally, and this is the revised version of it, we were not going to replace the footings, but you'll see in here, there is a footing number on here. Because during further investigation, we were able to dig up the old footing inspections, and the old footing inspection shows a J hook bolt that goes into the ground and hooks to the rebar in the concrete. J hooks are no longer acceptable practice because where it hooks, it fails. So that's why they said they would not recommend reusing the footing. So that's why we added the footing cost to these lights.
When you had this investigated, there was no way to save the other three. Like with re-welding, better support, whatever it is.
I should have brought it. I apologize. It is on our website, the full engineering report, but it was multiple times it was recommended for removal of these. There was I was actually quite interested. I've never seen it before. They did a magnetic test where they put a magnetic reader on the poles, and then they blow a magnetic powder around it to see anywhere the powder stuck. That meant there was no magnetism there. So the weld was separated, and there was spots around on all these that were showing that. And doing a re-weld would eat in the steel that's already there, that's already been there for 20 years and is weak. So we wouldn't recommend re-welding those.
So there was no way to re-engineer it so that we could.
To re-engineer, he said you would probably be looking at doing some type of replacement anyways. So he said the cost efficiency of re-engineering, getting it retested, rebuilt, as opposed to replacement was way outscaled the other. So that's why they recommended the replacement on it.
What's the material these are made out of? Do they rust? Do they not rust?
They are galvanized steel, so they're not supposed to rust on them. And the new lights also, I just looked at the picture and it refreshed my memory. The new lights are LED lights.
Yeah.
So,
I read about that.
yep, so they will be less intrusive to neighbors and a cleaner energy. These, the ones that fell, we actually had to have the field cleaned because they had mercury in the bulbs, so we had to clean up the mercury as well. It's been an ongoing process.
Were the ones at Ludlow, were those new because of the whole setup in the field over there was new, or were they replaced because?
I don't know why they were replaced. I do know we pulled up to see how old they were and whether we should have them inspected as well. And we are looking summer to have them just inspected for peace of mind for the fact that one of them fell.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Ms. Leclerc.
I seem to remember that the ones that were maybe part of a fundraising campaign from like either PTA or an outside group at one time. Does that sound familiar or?
There was part of a fundraising group that helped supply the lights and also build the concession stand there. Actually, the plaques are still on the concession stand. That's how we were able to track down the original engineering for the footings.
So is that why maybe that like we wouldn't have all the paperwork if someone else built it or?
From 2000, I don't.
It's hard to know.
It's hard to know where where it may have been. We have in our maintenance department, we have a plan room. It's got blueprints all the way back from sixties, fifties. So we were digging through a lot of paperwork to try to see what we could come up with.
So the recall was 2010, but these were put in
2000.
2000, so 25 years old. So they were past their,
They were right at their peak life. So
okay. Mr. Matola?
Real quick, and so we're not replacing all the light poles on that field. Some are still in good shape, right? And they're different types, right?
we're replacing all four. There's only
Four of them there, so
only 4
they're all
of them.
going out. Okay, I'm sorry. And where you say here, the failure of the this is your, I guess, 14 point. Failure of the existing poles presents an immediate safety hazard to users of the facility. So I just want to make sure I heard you right at the beginning of your presentation. Have these poles, they've all been taken down?
They have been lowered.
Okay, because that's the way I read this, I'm reading it to think that some of them are still up, but
When
they're
that
not.
was written, they were still standing, but with the athletic season starting and the need to reopen the
Down.
field, we did lower that.
And then are you using any temporary lights there now for anything or just?
There's currently nothing because we are light until 8 o'clock. Like I said, the concern is these are 5 to 6 weeks from order place to delivery to site. And when we get into the fall sports program, when it starts getting dark at 5 o'clock, that's where we're gonna have the bigger issues and concerns about canceling activity.
Do you think this project will be done by the fall sports season? That's the goal?
That is the goal, is to have it end of July, beginning of August to have these up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matola. Other questions from?
And these new light poles will be added on your line.
Fun here, sounds like.
Thank you, Ms. Chair. Other questions? Okay, and Mr. Becker, just confirming, so this is an emergency item. This was not on the waterfall, correct?
This was not on the latest run, based on the dollar amount, we don't anticipate it to have a material impact on 9% threshold, but it will be included.
It'll be updated and
We've already begun incorporating it in our current drafts as well.
great. Any other questions? Okay, so we can move this to a vote. All in favor of approving the resolution set forth in item 5 of the agenda? Raise your hand. It is unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. Papa George.
Thank you.
Great. We'll move to item 6, to hear, consider, and act upon approving an appropriation $21,760 for amounts owed under agreements between the town of Fairfield and Osprey Initiative LLC, Earth Place Inc., and State of Connecticut DOT for a litter interception boom system. This item is fully funded using account, bringing numbers, AKA the NIP fund. So NIP fund meaning, I assume, the money we got from the little bottles, right? Motion to hear this item. Ms. Ruggiero, seconded by Mr. Curley. Okay, so the backup for this item is posted online in a separate supplemental document apart from the main backup. Is there any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll turn this over to Mr. Bishop. Welcome. Good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you to the board for having me tonight and hearing this this item. I think it's an excellent and worthwhile endeavor on behalf of my department and the Inland Wetland Agency to pursue this in partnership with Connecticut DOT and Harbor Watch, as well as the city of Bridgeport. In short, there's some handful of documents you've been provided, including the location and the estimate and an agreement for professional services generated by Town Attorney Pierce, a letter from Connecticut DOT, and a memo that really summarizes what the project is and the device. But to keep it short, in turn, it's a floating boom in the Rooster River, just north of the North Avenue Bridge on the city-town line. And the purpose of it is to intercept floating trash that's extensive coming down Rooster River and heading towards Ash Creek and Long Island Sound. The item is it has a cost of $11,000, and we were looking at the agreement with Harbor Watch for 1 year of an estimated $10,000 for operation and maintenance. That figure was proposed by Harbor Watch with several unknowns, including frequency of operation and maintenance activities, removal, the quantity of trash removed and disposal costs and such. So this is kind of a pilot program. Connecticut DOT is excited, as are we, and all proper permitting would be executed prior to installation. And just to point out, I know have been some discussions about flooding concerns, and that's been discussed with town engineer Hurley. The device does have some design protocols, including tearaway ability. Should a whole tree or log come floating down the river, or something large that could cause damage during a heavy flow, big storm, rain event, something like that. With that, also my department staff as well as Harbor Watch would be responsible for monitoring should that be a type of storm be forecasted. It would be disconnected and not impede any storm flow events. The intent was to use NIP fund money. Some of you might have seen a few weeks ago, $18,000 from 360,000 NIPs in the last 6 months have come to Fairfield. This fund is a 6-figure balance, and I think this is an excellent use of the money that this fund has been designed for: removal of trash. And I think that's about it. I'm happy to entertain some questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bishop. Did you say we got 18,000?
Yes, that was published in the patch in 6 months of time with the sale of 360,000 nip bottles in town.
Oh, so that was just a 6-month number.
Just in the six
Okay,
month,
got it.
yes.
Okay.
This,
So- and
this
this
balance,
is-
the fund balance is
Okay,
is
so
over
assuming we
100,000.
get something comparable for the next 6 months, that would give us more than enough to fund this. And
There's I mean, we've been collecting NIP funds for a while now.
oh, we have.
I don't figure out those, but it was over, it was 6 figures. It was matching. It's been
Oh.
accumulating, and there's questions,
So we have that in a segregated account. Okay,
for a while now.
Alright.
But just like, it's last year.
so that we'd have enough money if the maintenance costs of this or the amount of trash collected were to be higher than the credits. Questions from the board, Mr. Walsh?
Woman, could we get total amount that's in this account, what it's called, what the amount of money is? We have things in fund for it. So if we want to use some of this fund for other things, at least I appreciate that. And Bishop, thanks for being here. How are you tonight?
Good, thank you.
Good. Just a
I was
couple
on another
questions.
town meeting. So
Thanks
switched over.
for your thorough presentation. I received a lot of emails on this. I just want to clear up one thing. This Osprey initiative is no way
That'd be Osprey.
tied to Osprey Environmental, who was involved with the fill site, correct?
That is correct. They are from far away in Alabama, so they are not related to this site.
Great.
To-
I just wanted to clear up. Everybody
town.
has like this. Yeah, I need your reaction if they hear the word Osprey or if they even see an Osprey. They have issues with it, so I just wanted to clear that fact up. So I think this is a great idea.
Yes, thank you.
How much additional, like how often are you gonna have to clean this out, or your department? Are you splitting this with Bridgeport, or are they cleaning it out like certain times, or how does this all work?
At this point, our only collaboration with Bridgeport will be for the inland wetland permitting, as we internally with Harbor Watch will have to do in Fairfield as well. They have not responded as far as sharing any costs. Myself and Harbor Watch are spearheading the pilot with DOT. They're excited and really they're involved because access to this portion of Rooster River is through DOT property. So we've had two site meetings with DOT, just coordinate access. Number one, get the permit, and to make sure that they're willing to allow us to access the river through state property. So yeah, as far as the city of Bridgeport, they're not involved, but I would like to say that 2 weeks ago, there was a snag about 4 properties upstream from this location that was accumulating a pickup truck's worth of trash. So it did highlight the fact that this is a strategic location to intercept floating garbage. I did retain Harbor Watch to enter the water through private property from the complainant on our side of the river. And they did, like I said, remove a truckload worth of trash. Literally, I have pictures that I advised Inland Wetland Agency on last night. So I think it will be successful. I just don't. No one knows the frequency of maintenance. Will probably start out weekly to see how things go. When it does fill up, they'll handle it. It could be a seasonal thing. The device does have, like I said, a hard boom that floats, and then kind of like a drum device that allows water through it, but holds the debris that it collects. So it will be that drum that requires manual removal from the water and emptying. So
Is this literally trash, or would it also collect like leaves if they were coming down there?
the leaves should pass through. The barrel device has holes on it, but does, I think, mechanically retain the floating trash.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Walton. So Tim, Mr. Matola works for the city of Bridgeport and he's assured me that they'll pick up past calls.
I don't have that.
Okay, any other questions on this item? Ms. Leclerc?
I was still a little unsure of how the NIPS fund works. So is that money required to be used for certain types of things? And could someone explain what those uses are?
Anyone know?
I don't, do you know?
I only know what I've read in the patch was that I thought it had to be.
We can find out.
Environmental things.
Because I know the numbers are much higher than I would have ever thought.
Yeah,
I'm just curious what we can use it for and
yeah,
how
I
much the
thought.
balance is.
So summary, just quick off the legislation to, environmental, so the law requires municipalities receiving funds to use them for environmental efforts to reduce the amount of solid waste generated in the municipality or the impact of litter. These efforts include such things as hiring recycling, installing storm drain filters, block debris, buying mechanical street sweeper back in the broom, litter from street sidewalks and lawn and surface areas. Those are kind of, it's to get the NIPS.
Where the NIPS go.
Yeah.
Things like that off. And it's I believe if I read it right, it was a 5-cent surcharge, and it's every 6 months that it's sent back to the municipality. And this took effect. Surcharge began in 2021. Looks like around 22 it started. So, it's been at it for a little while, and dealing with things like this is right smacking what they're looking for.
So Mr. Harris, you'll get us the details of the balance and. All right, any other questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of approving the appropriations set forth in item 6 of the agenda, please raise your hand. Okay, it is unanimous. Thank you very much, Mr. Bishop.
Thank you. Have a good night.
It is great. So we'll move into item 7 to hear, consider, and act upon the suspense list for the tax collector. Motion to hear this item, Mr. Matola, seconded by Mr. Curley. The backup for this item begins on page 120 of the posted documents. And we have the tax collector, Dave Kay, here. Welcome. I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening. All right, so in accordance with 12-165 of the Connecticut General Statutes, I am requesting from the Board of Finance that approval for the transfer of tax accounts amounting to $107,102.51 to the suspense list. So my staff has spent a considerable amount of time researching these accounts, and and so to the best of our knowledge, these are, to our with their due diligence, we've discovered that these accounts are likely uncollectible. So, but as I've mentioned in the past, even though we're deeming these uncollectible, technically they still are collectible for a period of 15 years from the original due date. So, if payment is made, certainly it would be, collected.
Okay. Thank you. Questions from the board? Ms. Rivera.
Hi, thank you. So a lot of these are companies, businesses that were here. Did they
Yes.
did any of these declare bankruptcy? There's one for 17,000, pretty large amount.
Yes, I believe that one is a bankruptcy, but I also understand that the assessors, I believe it's not going to be on the grand list for next year as well. But many of these businesses, they go through our office's due diligence in that, we've sent late notices to these businesses. We've sent demand notices. We've sent what's called an alias tax warrant, where we've utilized the state marshal to attempt to collect. And with a lot of these businesses, it's discovered that they're either out of business, they've left town, bankruptcy. So, what we discover is the likelihood of collecting this in the future is not good. So that's typically why, but there is a process that plays out before we do suspend them.
And most of the individuals that are on the list, a lot of them, they go back to 2018. Are they still currently, do they still have tax bills? Are they still living in that location?
No, so that is so the majority of the individuals listed would be motor vehicle taxes, and those are approximately 6 years old, because what we do there is within the first 3 years, typically you have that 3-year window of DMV, your registration. So your registration is good for a period of 3 years, and we place a hold on the registration when the vehicle is delinquent, the taxes on the vehicle are delinquent, and then they would have to come in and pay their taxes before they're able to re-register their car. So if that 3-year period passes, it's likely everything from they could have passed away, they could have moved out of the state. And then the additional 3 years is we give those vehicles to a collection agency that will do research beyond our means, such as skip tracing, trying to find them out of state, find where they moved to find out if they passed away. And then if the collection agency over a period of 3 years has done their due diligence, is still unable to collect as well, then after that 6-year period, we suspend it.
And just one more question, would that impact somebody's credit? Does that get reported by the agencies?
No, we do not. So even though we use a collection agency, they do not report to credit bureaus.
Thank you.
Yep.
I just have a procedural question. Do citizens who don't pay their car tax bill have any restrictions in terms of other ability to get other services in the town? Like, for example, if I didn't pay my car tax bill, would I be able to get a beach sticker?
That I'm not sure, only because the beach sticker is not paid through the tax collector's office. We do have individuals that come in to our office. I mean, that may be a question for Anthony. I'm not sure, but they do come into our office. A lot of times they initially come in thinking that's where it gets paid and acquired. But it could be that they do withhold, because we have people coming in saying, I'm getting a beach sticker, I have to pay my car taxes.
Yeah, because I would think that you might be more successful in collecting these things if they can't do other things in the town?
Well,
I don't know if
we
that's
are,
been
we
part of
are
your
extremely
strategy.
successful with, in, you know, not just Fairfield, but every town in the state, you place a hold on the individual's registration. It's very effective. The list that I'm presenting tonight, these are 6 years delinquent. So the assumption is at that point, they're well beyond the 3-year registration window. So they're not attempting to register a car, and it's per name, it's not per vehicle. So it's not that just because, you know, an individual didn't pay their Honda Civic, they can just go register another car. So John Smith has a Honda Civic. He wants to go register a brand new Honda CRV. Because John Smith was delinquent on any type of car in his name, there's a hold, he's unable to register. But, you know, again, these are 6 years old. So the assumption here is that they're not trying to register a car in any town in Connecticut. And they've likely moved out of state or passed away. And this is why it's beyond 6 years.
Mr. Myers, other questions from the board? Ms. Leclerc.
Can you tell us how this compares to what we put into suspense last year?
Sure. So it's about 50,000 more. I'm sorry, excuse me, I misspoke. It's 50,000 less than last year, mainly because last year there was a company with a high amount that went bankrupt and closed. So that's, you factor that out and the numbers are almost the same from last year.
And in future years, can you give us that comparison so we can compare year to year?
Yeah, it was, I have it in front of me. So this year, we're proposing 107,000. Last year, it was 155,703.
Thank you, Ms. Leclerc. Any other questions from the board?
I'm going to recuse myself from CG pass lines on the list that I don't want someone leaving this. Use myself from the vote. Unfortunately, I've had to do this many years.
All right.
I'm just happy my name's not on the list.
I was looking at
I went through the whole
First thing
list,
I
I
looked-
was, you know, I knew.
We know where you live, John. If you see John taking an Uber to the Board of Finance meeting, you never can register his car. Okay, all in favor of approving the tax collector suspense list as submitted in the published backup, please raise your hand. Okay, opposed, abstain. Okay, all right, so the motion, the motion passes 8-0. Mr. Wong recused himself. Okay. Thank you, Dave. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to item 8, which is to hear, consider, and act upon a request from the chief fiscal officer or registrar of voters to transfer $16,206.38 contingency to registrar of voters accounts as follows. For the Republican primary in August of 2024. Account numbers relevant to the transfer are listed in the agenda item. Can I have a motion to hear this item? Mr. Curley, seconded by Mr. Myers. Okay, the backup for this item begins on page 132. And who's going to take this, Mr. Harris?
Yeah, I don't have anything to add to the backup, but basically it's the principal portion of this, 12,615 is seasonal payroll. There are fees and professional services, printing. The travel is food, and there was an amount that was specifically designated in contingency last year for this. The amount actually designated was almost $72,000. So we are requesting a transfer of $16,206.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Mr. Curley?
Yeah, I see that the description talks about, this was for expenses incurred related to Republican primary in August of 2024. That was a known event. Was it not budgeted for appropriately? Why do we need, why did it run over, I guess?
when it did not run over, it was, I mean, I don't know why it was in contingency last year, but it was in budget, in contingency.
You know about a primary at the time of the budget?
I mean, it was specifically designated, my understanding, by the Board of Finance, when you went through the budget process.
Yeah.
Usually we don't
Have one, yeah.
provide that. Cause yeah, usually these are contingency, you don't necessarily
You don't know
know
if you have,
what it will be, so you don't wanna necessarily allocate it to the department, you wanna transfer it to their members.
2024 was a federal year. That would have, was the key, that there was kind of, it was the presidential.
Oh, okay, you're right. Yep.
This was.
Be out of our
August. This
process
wasn't
August.
presidential. This was the actual, this was the primary for down ballot. The presidential would have been
April.
earlier in the year.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right, thank you, to the registrars the registrar for providing all the comprehensive backup. So we can bring this to a vote. All in favor of approving the transfer set forth in item 8 of the agenda, please raise your hand. Okay, it is unanimous. Thank you, everyone. Okay, item 9. To hear, consider, and act upon a request from the chief fiscal officer to transfer 100,089 from general fund contingency to health department, regular payroll in fiscal 25 for the nurses settled contract. Motion to hear this item, Ms. Ruggiero, seconded by Mr. Myers. Thank you. There is no backup for this item that was posted. Mr. Harris, do you want to talk about this one?
Yes, the amount that was in contingency was $65,000. The amount that's been paid out is $189,000. And we're requesting that the additional $35,000 be funded from the amount that was set aside for the register of voters, which was not used. So we're requesting a total transfer of $100,089.
Okay, questions on this item?
Is
Mr.
there a
Welch?
reason why there's no backup?
You know, I mean, we can need the payments that were processed so we can get a list of the payments that have been made.
That was number 8.
Mhm.
So was number 8. Those payments that were. on
There's,
the-
there's backup for number 8.
I know, why is there no backup for this? We always have backup.
There's backup.
So the backup, if we had it, would be payments, payroll amounts.
Yeah, payroll, it'd be right, yeah, right. We can get that.
This is just the actual amount paid, that was in excess of what had been set aside in contingency for this nurse's contract.
Is this in excess of the contingency? Is there any excess?
There was, for this specific settlement, the contingency was $65,000. So the amount in contingency was not sufficient to cover the amounts that have been paid. The shortfall is being funded from the amount that was set aside for the register of voters, which was, there was 71,000 plus set aside for the register of voters. This year 16,000. So that's where the shortfall is being funded from. But both amounts were in contingency.
So $100,000 is the total. We had 65,000 in contingency, so an extra 35,000 came from contingency also that we did not need to use. Got it.
So I just have a question. So this covers the shortfall for this fiscal year? Is it implied that there would be a shortfall for 26 or?
That will be in the budget. That will be in the budget.
They'll just have to find it?
That would be in the.
No, it was
budget.
budgeted.
They had
They,
budgets.
they settled in the fall,
Yeah.
so it gave us time to use accurate numbers.
Okay. Okay, so they had, okay, I got it.
Any other questions from the board? Okay. All in favor of approving the transfer set forth in item 9 of the agenda, please raise your hand. Okay, It is, the vote is 8-0, as Ruggiero stepped out of the room. Okay, thank you, everyone. All right, so we'll move to item 10, to hear, consider, and act upon a request from the Chief Fiscal Officer to transfer $63,865 from general fund contingency to various accounts as indicated in the backup for department head increases in fiscal 25. Motion to hear this item. Mr. Mottola, seconded by Mr. Myers. Backup for this item is on page 143. Mr. Harris, any comments on this?
These are retro adjustments that go back to July 31st of 2024
July 1st.
of 20, or is it July 1st of, sorry, of 2024. And it provides for increases of 2.75% for each of the department heads.
And these were approved by the Board of Selectmen?
These was, yes, these have been approved by the board.
When were they approved?
Last week,
Last week.
their last meeting.
Approved timely, and these are, they go back retro. Okay. All right, any questions from the board?
Is this from fiscal year 25?
Does he?
Fiscal year 25 increases?
July, yeah.
July 1st, that's fiscal year 24.
Is it clear?
And this entire amount was in contingency in the budget,
Right.
so it's no over or under.
Other questions? Okay, all,
I do have a couple questions.
yep,
So why do I see police officers but no fire?
Because their raises are coming out, they have money in their budget. They have remaining funds in their budget, so their raises are gonna be funded from the budget.
So the police don't have enough money in their budget because they didn't budget properly? Is that what I'm led to?
I don't, you know,
That,
yeah, they would have been got budgeted in contingency.
no, we're most of the way through the fiscal year. Some of the departments, for instance, human services is not listed here. They have money from
Right.
part-time savings within their budget, so they're on the schedule. We're only asking we're only asking for dollars out of the contingency that need to come out of contingency. So in that particular instance, they believe as of now that they are going to be fine to have that absorbed through other savings, overtime accounts, et cetera. Police department believes that they're running truer to their budget, so they'll use the contingency amount that have been allocated. So this ultimately ends up netting to a little bit less of the contingency usage, and we're trying to be responsible there if the budgets can take that hit. So not everyone, and again, human services is on the schedule.
So does that mean that next coming year, we won't have to put as much as the contingency because we're not using it all?
well, we've included 2.7, well, we've included money in contingency for all department heads. That's to, whether we have to use it all, would depend on how departments are performing versus budget next year.
Do we get a report if we have to go into executive session at a future meeting, figure out what we took out versus what we put in?
Sure.
And then the other question I have is, it says department head increases. Why are all the police captains department heads? It's not just department heads, it's employees within departments.
So non-union?
It's essentially senior level non-union. They get classified in the budget as, NONU, non-union dash DH, it's as their senior command staff. They're non-union, so they get lumped in the same. BOS has to approve the ones that are listed specifically in the charter. And it's at the same time advised of and typically given the same amounts, the ones that are not, but they're all the senior non.
So at that same meeting that we're gonna have that at, because that'll show every position, right, what we budgeted for every single person. I'd like to see every position. Okay. Thank you.
So, Mr. Harris, so just if you can make a note of that for the June agenda. Okay, any other questions from the board? All right, seeing none, all in favor of approving the transfer set forth on item 10 of the agenda, raise your hand. Okay, it is unanimous. Thank you. All right, item 11. To hear an update from the purchasing director on purchasing policy waivers. The backup for this item is posted on page 144. Mr. Toolin, welcome back. I'll turn this over to you.
So, Lori, we're still working on the purchasing committee is still reviewing it. Do we want to wait till we finish talking to Connie and Adam to understand the purchasing policy? I didn't quite understand why this is.
Well,
on
we've
the
had this a couple times before. This is just the existing purchasing policy that we voted on, I guess it was November of 23, requires that we're told about any bids that were waived. So if the committee decides to change that or change the frequency or wants to review these in advance, then you can do that. But I think according to the current policy, we're supposed to get periodic reports on this. So, and we've had these before.
Right, so we were hoping to report back to you next, like in our meeting.
Okay,
So that's why I didn't know why this was here.
okay. Yeah, I didn't realize you were, so if you're working on that aspect and something changes, that's fine. This I would just, this is under the requirement of the existing policy, but yeah, absolutely. Adam?
Great, thank you for having me. And yes, just to add on my 2 cents to that, yes, this report is prepared based on the policy as it is currently approved. But yes, I'm working with this subcommittee to hopefully make a couple of upgrades, improvements to it moving forward. So if you have the it's pretty short. It's only 5 or 6 pages. Do you have that in front of you, or?
We do.
Okay, great. So I just noticed there's a couple of minor math errors on the sort of first chart that I have there, where I sort of break down numbers for fall report and spring report, but nothing significant. This is still a decent sort of graphic for you to get an idea of where we were when I talked to you guys back in, I think it was October, and then how many more waivers have taken place since then. So it's roughly, of the total number we've had this fiscal year so far, it was roughly half were done in the fall and another half have taken place since then. So I'm not terribly surprised by that. If you go on to page 3, these numbers are accurate. So over the course of the entire year, we've had 95 total exceptions to the purchasing policy. Which at first glance, I acknowledge that might sound like a high number. I'm not sure what any of your expectations were, and I'll just say for this sort of first year of full reporting, I'm kind of looking at this, not to overuse a term, but I'm kind of looking at this almost like a pilot, where we kind of see where we're at, and then we can benchmark for future years. So, but if anything is alarming to you guys, I'm happy to hear it and see where we can improve moving forward. So of those 95 total exceptions, it's only coming in at about 5% of our total spend. So again, 95 sounds like a large number, but in terms of total, value, I think personally 5% is a decent number. Again, we'll see what it looks like moving forward and what you guys think of that number, but that's where we're at. I then broke it down a little further on pages 4 and 5 by the school system and by the town, just to give a little bit more detail. So again, 72 total exceptions on the school side. The vast majority of those, well, the largest chunk of those are for special ed services. And, this is sort of, I think the big question mark coming into this policy is what do we do about those? So I've just been tracking them. I don't know what we do moving forward if you guys don't like that number, because they are sort of unique, and we created this carve out specifically for them. So I am not alarmed by this number, and I don't think you guys should be either. But I'm just tracking them for this purpose. So again, almost 60% of their total exception has been for special ed program services, which are just extremely unique and usually dictated by IEPs and agreements involving lawyers and whatnot. So, but then their second largest piece was single/sole source items, which were the vast majority of those were related to classroom software and textbooks, things like that. So, to me, again, no surprises here. I did not feel terribly alarmed by these numbers. On the town side, we've had 23 total exceptions, which come in right at, a little over 2% of our total spend. So for me, that feels like 2% is the exception. And so that fits sort of within the definition I was envisioning for this. Our biggest on the town side are for legal services, which is a carved out exemption. And then the 3 emergency purchases that we had this year that per policy came to you guys first before they were two of them were in one meeting and one of them had its own separate meeting. So those are sort of larger dollar, but we went through the process having you guys weigh in on them before we proceeded. And then the final page is just the list of new exceptions since I presented to you last time. If you want to see the full list for the entire year, I could get you that as well. It just seemed a little bit overkill for what I was trying to do tonight. But I don't have much else to add to that. Do you have any questions that I could try to address?
Mr. Toolin, Mr. Walsh?
On your last page, your list that you have back here. Yeah, I'm just going through it for the first time, so I'm just looking at one, but I guess what I'm having a question about is JP Franzen and Associate Architects for the fire department number 4 renovation documents, single sole source. He's the only architect who can do work there. We have many architects in the town of Fairfield. I don't know why he's a single source. And I love Jack. I think he does great work for multi-million-dollar houses in Southport. So I'm kind of questioning what that's for.
Yep. I don't have the documentation in front of me to give you specifics. What I can tell you from memory is, this was a situation where the town was partnering with the volunteer fire department there. I believe this involved COVID funds, or ARPA funds, and it was just felt that this architect had done I believe he had done previous work at this facility, and
I don't see how doing previous work is an exemption for every other architect who works or lives in the town of Fairfield to have the same opportunity to bid on a job. I'd like to know why that makes the case for this.
I'll take it. He's done the prior work. He has the base designs already done on the building. And the owners of the building ultimately have made clear that in this particular point is on the project, only that firm will be utilized for this project. Historic building, and they want the same firm that has done the prior work. Most of that work actually in the past being free. So that was really or we literally don't do work at the building.
The owners of the building that you referenced.
Southport Volunteer Fire Department Corporation.
Okay, but if we're gonna be paying for it now, I just think that other architects should have the ability. In regards to the plans themselves, previous plans, they're owned by the client. The ones who paid them before. So it just seems odd that that's sticking out.
Just giving you the facts on this and us trying to move the project forward. That's, I don't disagree with the concern at all.
All right, Mr. Toolin, I'll talk to you offline about this. I don't want to waste everybody at the tables. I'm definitely gonna want to get more information about this. But I presume that you're looking at this stuff, right? And that everybody in town has the right to bid on projects, right?
Yes, and we do have
An equal opportunity to do so, and this way we get the best cost.
yes. And I'll just say, you know, we do have I'm not saying it justifies ever sole sourcing something, but just there is a process in place, you know, where these don't just happen with no review. There's a form that's filled out with supporting documentation. It gets reviewed by me and the first selectman as the purchasing authority, and then we meet and review it and sign off on it before any purchase order or contract is executed.
All right, and if you can give me your definition of what a sole source is?
It's in the policy,
Okay.
just so you know.
Okay, I'll
Yeah,
pull it up on
and
the
I
policy.
just, maybe I can provide a little bit of background. And this is good for the committee to revisit. But when we first started developing the purchasing policy, the order of magnitude of these exceptions was, I don't know, 10 or 20 times this number, it seemed. It was a massive number. And so part of the objective of the policy was to make sure that there was a process in place that was subject to approval if there were, we were not going to get a bid in a situation. Just trying to thread the needle between being practical and not, subjecting everything to a bid process which could last several months, to make sure there was a reporting mechanism so that we could all see what was happening, and if need be, adjust the policy if we didn't like what was happening. So I think it's fair to say that this was in accordance with the policy. Single and sole source are different. I don't remember which one is which. One is there is only one source, and one is we have decided to go single source for reasons that need to be justified and approved by multiple parties, including the purchasing director and the purchasing authority. So, I think it's great, Mr. Walsh, if you want to follow up on that, and the committee, I'm sure is, that's why we have the committee active this year, so that as we're seeing this information, they can decide whether our policy is sound or needs to be tweaked on these items. Mr. Mottola?
Yeah, I appreciate what Jim was saying. I don't want you just to find out. I want to find out too why, and maybe that's something that
I'm willing to bring it to before.
that the committee does, right?
Yeah.
That's all. That's all.
Our
Yeah,
next
that's like-
subcommittee meeting.
You have a note?
All I meant is I thought we were getting ahead of us.
Do it. Find out what happened here. Yeah.
Sole source to me is not some private organization that owns a building and they say this is the only person we're gonna use.
I don't think that happened.
Because to me, that's okay, well, we don't give you the money. That's the way that goes, because we have policies and procedures for this.
I bet what you're gonna find out for this, without, you guys are gonna find out, is that it's a sole source because this architect has been working on this facility and has certain expertise in historical buildings like this. I bet that's what happened here, but we should find out, because I think it's important.
And again, thank you for the report, Adam. And this is the whole point of getting this disclosure, which it's kind of funny. Our previous purchasing policy, our three-page purchasing policy, always required our board to get these types of reports, and we never got them. But since the new policy has been in place and under Mr. Toolin, we're getting them. I think it provides the appropriate level of transparency and enables us to ask the kinds of questions that Mr. Walsh raised. So, if the committee wants to circle back next time, June, you said?
Yes.
Okay, terrific. All right, thank you. Any other questions? All right, thank you. All right, thank you, Mr. Toolin. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Mr. Toolin.
Okay, so we'll move on to item 12, which is to hear committee updates. Start with the audit committee. Mr. Mottola.
We met last week. And, presentation of 2 audits or 3 audits from Connie, which are gonna be into this part in June,
June, yeah.
presentations. That, we also, our auditor, Joe Sinafani, just went over generally what he's gonna be upcoming audit, sign the paperwork, and I think we're gonna be voting on that in June, right? Full board.
Yeah, we're actually gonna try to do it in May. I always thought the deadline was June 30th, but it's actually May 31st that we have to report to the state that we've appointed our auditor. So at our quarterly meeting,
What's our next meeting?
our quarterly meeting is in a week and a half, and we'll bring the auditor appointment to the board.
And I don't think he really reported anything to.
Yeah, so it is coming, yes.
He didn't anticipate it. So. That was it. I just think that internal audits that are happening are great and finding a lot of things.
Back to the
We're
board.
all excited to hear about it.
Purchasing policy, Ms. Leclerc?
Okay, we've recently had 2 meetings and we have one more coming up on Monday, May 19th. And there's a few things we're reviewing in the purchasing policy. And we're trying to take the original policy and compare it to the redlined into what recommendations Adam is that's gonna consider. And I guess there's a couple points. One is that since the purchasing policy was written, the town came up with its own ethics policy, which sort of follows the purchasing policy, but is more lenient. And so what we're discussing is whether it's okay to be a little stricter, but will that add confusion to the town employees and the people who use the purchasing policy? And if we wanna follow the town policy itself and just attach it as an appendix and take out what was put in there, that's one of the things we're looking at.
And so are you, when you have your last meeting, are you intending then to bring it to the board for a vote on changes?
Yeah, so I wanna get a consensus or a vote from our committee, and then we'll make a recommendation to our board. So it's not terrible to be a little more restrictive for the purchasing policy, so we could do either. So that's just comparing, and seeing if we can line it up as much as possible, so it's not. The other one is, MROs, and it's the same thing, we're just trying to match the language and see if that's working. I guess there's a couple of different, thoughts on that process. One is it to help local vendors, or is it to try to save the town money by using local vendors that it's closer to get the product in, and what the original purpose is, and if the purpose is still there, because now with Amazon, you can have almost anything overnight. So the question is whether we still need that. Or is there like a benefit to try to give a little business to local vendors who are in our town. And if Shane or Jim wanna jump in, let me know. And then the other one is, we're trying to tighten up the protest procedures. That really wasn't very strict, I guess, is in my understanding about it. And so he just wants to have a very straightforward policy that would protect both the town and the bidders, that if your bid wasn't accepted, what the procedure is to contest that. And for the town, if we have a solid procedure, we should get less people questioning the bidding procedures. And I think those are the 3 main items we've been talking about. Anyone else?
Excellent. Well, thank you for doing that work. Really appreciate it. Look forward to the full update. Okay, I'll just give a quick update on the fund balance, debt service and borrowing committee. We met on April 24th. The main topic was the WPCA funding policy, which had been presented to this board for a vote during our March meeting, but we deferred the vote to gather additional information. The subcommittee had a discussion about the previous recommendation, which was around how to split costs between the town and WPCA on certain projects. And where we left it was we requested additional data for management to support the allocation scenario that they requested, and potentially other allocation scenarios. So we asked for, and Tom, you can fill in if I'm missing this, but we basically asked for information about the split of the grand list between sewer holders and non-sewer holders, number of households, just a bunch of data so that we could better support or revise the recommendation that was made to this board back in April. So once we get that data, we will look at it. We have a meeting scheduled on May 22nd. And hopefully we have enough there to come back with a recommendation, either revised or not, to this board in our June regular meeting. And so that's that. Yes.
Please. But if you're just looking at users versus non-users, right?
That's not all we were looking at, but we were kind of.
If I'm a non-user, right?
Yeah.
But I use Black Rock Turnpike and Post Road, I'm using the sewer system.
No, agreed. And there was never, so.
Or any restaurant.
So basically if you look, so there's a couple things. I'm trying to keep it simple, but the policy had three categories of how it would be split. It was either all the WPCA, if it was just maintenance of existing lines, or 50-50, town and WPCA, if it was a project that was going to support commercial development. And then the plant was put in its own separate category of 75% WPCA, 25% town. And that last category of the plant was the one that there were questions on. It was like, should that be 50-50? Should it stay at 75-25? And, we all talked about it and you could justify multiple different things. So before we had the next conversation, we just wanted to say, here's all the data. You can look at it 5 different ways. Ultimately, it's a judgment. So we wanted to have all the data before the board so that we could have a healthy conversation and just vote. Okay, all right. I think that's it for the committees, so we can move to item 13. To hear, consider and act upon the draft minutes of September 26th, 24, February 6th, 25, March 6th, March 11th, March 13th, 20th, 29th, and 31st of 2025. Motion to hear this item, Ms. Ruggiero, seconded by Mr. Myers. Okay, so the draft minutes are posted beginning on page 150. We have 5 different scenarios on these minutes with different members absent, so we can vote on these separately. I'll start with the September 26th minutes. Mr. Myers, you were not yet on the board, and Mr. Curley and Matola were absent during that meeting. That was the Capital Planning Summit, or one of the 2 Capital Planning Summits. So are there any comments on the meeting, on the minutes for September 26th? You weren't there.
I won't be able to vote,
Okay.
but in item 3, this is the minutes from September 26th.
Yep.
In item 3, there's a reference to the meeting that took place 2 days prior, so October 24th should.
September 24th. Good catch. Okay. So you want to make that motion?
Sure. I move to change in section 3, Tuesday, October 24th to Tuesday, September 24th.
Okay, I'll second that. Comments, questions? Okay, vote on the amendment.
I can vote.
I think so.
Yeah.
All right, so opposed? Abstain?
Saying I was.
Okay, all right, so that amendment passes 801 with Mr. Myers abstaining. So I'll take a vote on the minutes of September 26th as amended. All in favor? Mr. Walsh, Ms. Ruggiero, Ms. Leclerc, Mr. Penley, Ms. Charlton, Mr. Stark, are you? Mr. Stark, opposed, abstained, Mr. Myers, Mr. Curley, Mr. Matola. All right. So those minutes pass, whatever that was. 603. Okay. All right. So let's move to the minutes of February 6th. Mr. Walsh was absent. Any comments on these minutes? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of approving the minutes, the draft minutes from February 6th, please raise your hand. Okay, opposed, abstained, okay, those minutes are approved, 801 with Mr. Walsh abstaining. Okay, everyone here was present for the meetings on March 6th, 11th, 13th, and 31st. Those were,
Four together.
yeah, we could vote on all those four together. Those were all budget hearings. Are there any comments on those minutes? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of approving the draft minutes from March 6th, March 11th, March 13th, and March 31st, 2025, please raise your hands. Okay, it is unanimous. Okay, the meeting on March 20th, Mr. Curley was absent. Any comments on those minutes? Okay, all in favor of approving the draft minutes of March 2025, please raise your hand. Okay, opposed, abstained. Okay, those minutes pass 801, Mr. Curley abstaining. And lastly, March 29th, I have Ms. Leclerc and Mr. Walsh absent.
As the public budget meeting.
That was a public budget
Yeah.
hearing, yeah. Comments there? Okay, all in favor of approving the draft minutes from March 29th? Okay, opposed, abstained? Okay, those minutes are approved, 702 with Mr. Walsh and Ms. Leclerc abstaining. Okay, item 14, to hear, consider, and act upon any communications. Mr. Harris, do you have anything? Anything else? Okay, item 15, I'll make a motion to adjourn. Is there seconds? Okay, good night, everyone. I think 17.